So the real problem of predictability of ultimate impact of action, as I see it, is a convergence between these things. Let's start with, we're going to start with the wave analogy, wherein we say that force is effectively lost. Force is effectively lost with time. In order to know the ultimate impact, in order to know the ultimate impact of a given action, one would need to know first, again, this range. How far are the ripples going to continue before they effectively zero out? Second, we would need to be aware of the potentiality of a convergence event with this kind of Gestalt factor, wherein the environment and the environment of forces wherein we are acting, within which we are acting, might present a convergence of forces on our action or on the ramifications of our action that radically amplify its significance in human event. We would also need to be aware of whether such a Gestalt factor would exist within the range of consequence before our action zeroes out. So let's say that we're talking about, well, we'll just pulling something out of the air, 7 degrees of separation. I would need to know first if my action in any way corresponds to the potentiality of a Gestalt event in immediacy, but also within 7 degrees of separation, but also within 7 degrees of separation of every point within those 7 degrees of separation. And that's the real problem. This is far less akin to the wave analogy than it is to high velocity fission, and that's where the unpredictability comes in. In order to really know, in the process of making a selection, in the process of making a choice, the full ramifications of that choice, I would need to have an awareness of the environment of force and the environment of factors to be acted upon that dwarfs the human capacity for observation, that dwarfs it into meaninglessness, and that's part of the concern. Really, I think that alone merits caution. That alone merits caution in action, or at the very least, mitigation in the selection of the sorts of actions that we take. Now, going to the other side of this, the more immediate, the more personal. The notion of immediate consequence, that the waves are going to bounce back and rock our own boat. The problem there is that even given the possibility of such a thing occurring, the full force, the majority of the force that an action has is not going to be experienced by us. Even if we do experience consequences, ramifications, the most significant and the longest lasting consequences of our actions are not those which we ourselves experience, if only by virtue of diffusion and distribution. I act upon you, this has an effect on how you interact with even if even if it's just something as simple as I treat you harshly in a casual social setting, and that influences how you engage with other people for the rest of your day. You're probably going to come into contact with anywhere from let's say you're working an office job, and you go out to eat for 2 meals a day, and you stop for gasoline, and you do some shopping. You have come into contact, direct and indirect, with hundreds of people. And the way in which my action upon you has influenced those interactions, the totality of social force that's been applied in that, vastly, vastly outweighs the potential ramifications upon me. I mean, unless, barring some extreme example, but those extreme examples again represent some sort of convergence event, and those convergence events are every bit as likely to occur to someone else as they are to occur to me. For that matter, again, given this model of hundreds of people, it's more likely that should I inadvertently put some sort of convergence of violent forces into action, or inadvertently set in motion the sequence of events wherein they can find immediate expression in human choice, it's the likelihood that I will be the person who experiences the full consequences of that action is minuscule. It's minuscule. It's extremely unlikely that I will be the person to bear the majority brunt of those consequences. So this is good reason to stay our hand. Which is not to say that we do not experience consequences. We absolutely experience consequences for every action that we perform. Every action that every choice that we make has personal relevance. Even if we don't see the waves bouncing back from the shore and rocking our boat, the awareness of our actions have significance, have ramifications, have consequences that we must deal with. So, anyway, that's and at this point the subject branches out in so many directions at once that I suppose we'll see which of them we jump on next.